I think we're going to try and get started here in the next few minutes, so everybody could find a seat, and then we have a little mingling session scheduled for after.
I can turn off the music.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining us, especially kind of given the state of the world right now. We appreciate everybody who made it out, wearing masks, joining on Zoom. Yeah, so we'd like to start out with a small moment of silence and a small candle vigil. If you'd like a candle, please come get some. I passed some out to some family members before we started, but yeah, just a small moment of silence. Maybe we'll just like, yeah, this one's kind of okay. Thank you all for joining us with that small moment of silence to remember my dad and what he meant to each of you. We'd like to start out with an opening poem. I believe that will be read by Christine. She'll be right up to read that.
As we look back. As we look back over time, we find ourselves wondering, did we remember to thank you enough for all you have done for us? For all the times you were by our sides, to help and support us, to celebrate our successes, to understand our problems and accept our defeats, or for teaching us by your example, value of hard work, good judgment, courage, and integrity. We wonder if we ever thanked you for the sacrifices you made, to let us have the very best, and for the simple things like laughter, smiles, and times we shared. If we have forgotten to show our gratitude enough for all the things you did, we're thanking you now. And we're hoping you knew all along how much you meant to us. Claire Jones. We love you, Jerry.
Thank you, Christine.
Christine was Jerry's sister, is Jerry's sister, so thank you. A few family members have prepared some remarks. I'll start out first, and then you'll hear from my brother Nicholas, Jerry's son, and then a few other family members have also prepared some words. Welcome. My name is Alyssa, and I'm Jerry's daughter. I just first wanted to start out by thanking everyone who took the time out of their day to be here to remember my dad. The loss of my dad was very sudden. He had a few health scares throughout his life, but he always seemed untouchable. He was Dad. He was strong. He was our protector. He was the one who looked out for us. I won't lie. I did worry about my dad's health quite a bit in my adult years, but I always chalked those worries up to my anxiety, something that was irrational. I always told myself, he's still young, you have plenty of time with him. He's healthier than he's ever been before. I'm devastated that it wasn't just my anxiety talking. My worst fears were very real, and they came true. And yet somehow I'm still here living my life, which feels so wrong to continue without him, but I know that that's what he would want. Everything I thought would break me in life has happened. My parents' divorce wasn't exactly easy for me. I went through a lot of fertility struggles. I had crippling insomnia, and I survived my own near-death experience when I gave birth. And now my dad, one of the people I'm closest to in life, has passed away. I constantly ask myself, how am I still functioning? People do tell me I'm so strong, and I'm not gonna lie, I know I'm strong because my dad made me strong. Anytime I was struggling, he'd be my personal cheerleader. He'd tell me what to do and then root me on as I did what I thought would be impossible. I'm sure it's not a surprise to hear that my dad was my biggest mentor in life. I called him for advice on everything from my career and finances to my relationship and kids. And while I always knew that my dad was my mentor, his death has made me realize that he was everybody's mentor. So many of my dad's colleagues have sent us cards and well wishes, telling us how much of an influence he's had on their careers. And while I knew my dad loved taking on the mentor role and really enjoyed the interpersonal aspects of his career, I didn't realize how much advice he had given countless others. Growing up, my dad always emphasized working hard and staying humble. He also taught us the importance of being reliable. He'd sometimes lecture us about it, but he mostly led by example. My dad has always been one of those people who just seemed to know what to do. When family emergencies happened, he instinctively took over and did what needed to be done, and we were all thankful. His death was the first cruel reminder that I have to figure it all out by myself going forward. I've always been a daddy's girl. My dad and I just operated on a different wavelength with each other. He was one of the only ones who was willing to call me out on my shit. And I'd call him out on his. And I'm not making this up. I reread my wedding speech and he wrote that exact line in his speech at my wedding. This obviously led to many stubborn battles between us, but we loved and respected each other throughout them all, and we always came to a mutual understanding. Seeing my dad become a grandpa brought our relationship to a really special level. It was probably my favorite phase of our relationship, and I was excited to explore it more and see it flourish. He had this radiance about him when he would play with my boys. He enjoyed making them giggle, feeding them yummy food. He loved when they'd cuddle in, and he was always really attentive and helpful. Even before he passed away, I frequently thought about our last morning together. It was absolutely perfect. My dad heard my boys waking up, and so he went into their room to rock them to sleep and give me a few extra minutes to sleep in. When I woke up, he had already made me a cup of coffee. He helped me get the boys ready for the day, and then he gave me a big bear hug on his way out, and he caught his flight back home. It's just one perfect example of all the ways my dad just seemed to know what to do. He was always taking care of me. I had my dad for almost 30 years, and while he was taken away from me too soon, he was taken away from his grandkids heartbreakingly too soon. It physically hurts when I think about the fact that my boys will have memories of their goofy grandpa, that we won't get any more of his funny stories and over-the-top gifts. Ever since he's been gone, I feel like a piece of me is physically missing. I don't know that I will ever be able to completely fill that piece of my heart, but I can find solace in our happy memories together. It almost feels impossible to go through the rest of my life without my dad. Not just the rest of my life, the majority of my life. He was so influential on shaping the core person I've become. I can't imagine not having him cheering me on for the rest of my life milestones. We didn't get nearly enough time with my dad. And it's hard because I'm not just mourning him. I've mourned all the memories that will never be. All the experiences we will never get to have together. I try to focus on the fact that he lives through me, through Nicholas, and through my kids. I hope I can continue to make him proud. I hope I can tell my kids all about his life, his personality, and the various ways he made me who I am today, and the person I will continue growing to be. My dad's passing has been a reminder for me to live life to its fullest, hug my loved ones every chance I get, and document the happy memories along the way. I hope his passing will serve as the same reminder to all of you as well. Thank you.
Turn it on.
Switch.
Oh. Sorry about that. I don't know how to turn the microphone off, apparently. As my sister already said, thank you all so much for being here with us today, whether you can make it in person or you're channeling in through Zoom. We all appreciate it, and we know you guys loved and respected him as much as his family did. For those of you, I see a lot of familiar faces, but for anybody who doesn't know me, my name is Nick. I am Jerry's son. My dad, he was a very loving person, although his large stature, you know, he could be quite intimidating when just looking at him. It's still funny to remember back and remember not all of them, but my sister's ex-boyfriend in high school just being terrified of him. Yeah, I always just knew him as a giant loving bear. He was a dedicated and passionate man for sure, whether it was his family life or at work. He always put the time in. After so many years of working at Smith's, you learn a few things along the way, not just about how to manage a business, but from all your interactions with people every day, whether it being customers or fellow colleagues. You meet a lot of different people along the way, and they teach you a lot of things. And he collected this wealth of information over his lifetime, and it led him to generally become a leader and a trainer in his job. And it's something that he loved. And being a mentor, he loved leading a classroom, and he loved teaching people and taking anybody under his wing like they were his own family. And I've had the benefit of working at Smith's and also with a lot of people who he has touched over the years. And I got to say, while working here, one of my favorite things to do, well, one of my favorite positions was being a floater. And essentially what that is you just help out. You go around store to store, and I loved it because I got to meet so many new people and hear so many stories about how he impacted their lives. It's funny, all of his students, all the classes he taught, they were all referred to as his kids, Jerry's kids, he would call them. And he really did teach his classroom like all of his students were his children. I have a lot of memories of my father that I'll cherish forever, whether it just being every Sunday morning, going to the Megaplex because it was empty and we got the theater to ourselves, to the weekly chocolate banana peanut butter shake runs that he loved. And even though I didn't like the banana in mine, chocolate peanut butter is still my go-to. There's one experience in particular that I'll never remember, or I'll never forget. I will always remember. While he was living in Texas a few years back, he managed to scrap up a couple of tickets to Super Bowl 51, and he invited me. And the game was being played between the Falcons and the Patriots, and neither of us really cared about either team, but just as a fan of the game, it was truly incredible to experience. And something else that was extremely funny is this game was iconic in the sense of the fact that the Patriots were down terribly at halftime, and at halftime there's a bunch of Patriots fans that left. And so there's empty seats all throughout the stadium. Well, when they started their iconic comeback, they weren't let back in. And we thought it was hilarious that, bandwagon fans leaving and not able to come back in. And I'll never forget that. I'll always remember all the holidays we experienced together as a family, whether early in life, sitting around the tree, opening gifts, drinking coffee, the Christmas Story playing in the background. It's probably his favorite movie. He never really rewatched movies. He's always into something new, but every year he would plop down, watch the Christmas Story, and all of us would kind of never follow it. We'd kind of tune in, but I'll never forget that was his favorite. We'll always share our love, not just of chocolate peanut butter and among other things, but he taught me to be a Jazz fan and my love for basketball. And as a child, he got these tickets behind the Jazz bench, and Greg Ostertag, he stood like 7 feet tall. I got a picture of him out on the court, and I swear he stood like 5 feet above me. He's a giant, but you've just provided so much in life for me and for our family and for everybody who you've ever taught, who's ever listened to you. And we love you, Dad, and you'll never be forgotten. I'm so proud to call you my brother, Jerry. I'm Anthony. I'm Jerry's brother. I had a difficult time attempting to find the words that would most accurately capture exactly what my brother's loss means to this earth. I simply cannot. Several years and miles at times separated my brother and I, but I was able to watch quietly in awe as he reached every goal he set for himself. Many people think he kept his personal life private. He didn't. He just kept it sacred. Jerry's greatest accomplishments were not monetary. They weren't in his career successes founded in his tireless work ethic. His greatest accomplishments were found in the beautiful family he helped create. I was young when Jerry got married, but I remember what the top of the world looked like to him. And the top of the world has really interesting mustaches and curious clothing choices, by the way. I witnessed the pride in his eyes when my wonderful sister-in-law gave birth to his first child, Alyssa. Following that, we witnessed the light that burst into them when he was blessed with his son, Nick. Later, his daughter gave him the greatest Christmas gift he could have ever gotten, and finding out he was soon to be a grandfather. When he became Papa Jerper, his heart overfilled with a pride I had never seen before. I wish I could have seen more. He wasn't done with these successes. He wasn't done experiencing all the wonderful things that life was ready to give back to him. At the end of the day, all Jerry did was give himself to others. In a chaotic and emotional family such as ours, Jerry always seemed to have an unshakable foundation. He was a source of strength for every single one of us at one point or another. I always admired him and looked up to him because I always truly felt like Jerry had it all together in life. I think we all did. Living so far apart and being busy with work and life, sometimes we wouldn't message for a while. However, every Christmas we would coordinate our visits so we could make sure we were together for the holidays. A few years ago, I had gotten him Jazz tickets to a game in Dallas for him and a guest to go a few months down the road. He had just moved there, and I thought he might have a good time checking out the Jazz in his new home. About a month before the game, in typical Jerry fashion, he called me and we were talking, and I asked if he was excited and he was going and what his plans were and all of that. And he said, well, funny you should ask. That's why I called. Would you want to go to the game with me if I flew you down here? So I went. We had such a great time. It was one of the best times I've ever shared with my brother.
it was kind of a blowout. Jazz were getting their ass kicked. We were about 45 minutes away from home, and he had to get me to the airport early and then go to work himself in the morning. So we both flirted a little bit with the idea of leaving early. But Jazz kept creeping in close, as they usually do. And we talked about listening to the game on the way home in the car if they happened to go to overtime. Well, they did go to overtime on a buzzer beater. We jumped so high in the air, both of us. And we were standing up during the break. And I think we were both looking at each other, waiting for the other one to say, okay, it's time to go. And Jerry turns to me and says, there's no way we're leaving now, right? Thank you, brother, for always giving the best of yourself, even when you didn't get the best of me. Thank you for blessing me by being in my life and being such an example to me and to countless others. Thank you for sharing the deepest parts of you with me. And the other select individuals that got to see that. Thank you for bringing to my life my forever sister-in-law. And thank you for both giving me my wonderful niece and nephew. And great nephews. But most of all, thank you for loving me. I can't wait to see you again. So don't worry, Jerry Bear. Be happy.
At this time, if anybody else would like to say a few words that they prepared, feel free to come up. Otherwise, we do have a closing poem and cookies. So, Stacy, do you want to come up? Stacy's my dad's sister.
So this is that I'm Jerry's sister, Stacy. I just have to say, we all have our memories of Jerry in different ways, as Lissa's memories of her dad are different than Nick's, and Bess, and Tony, and Chris, and everybody who knew him, colleagues, and we'll remember him in our own way. And through when I heard Jerry died, because we were not close for the last while, all these things of our childhood start flooding through me. My dad would do nights of singing, and Jerry really got into it with seasons in the Sun and Billy Don't Be a Hero. Man, he just sang his heart out. And before Smith, he got a job at a Mexican restaurant at Don Antonio's. And my dad would pick him up every Saturday, and he'd always get us scones, and we'd come back and watch Saturday Night Live and eat scones. And I just, as Lissa said, let this just show that we need to make sure to make the most of who we love and we don't have tomorrow. You can never wait to say I have tomorrow to say I'm sorry. They'll be here tomorrow, because the tomorrow may never come. And it hurts my heart that I don't have lasting, I have childhood memories, but I don't have recent memories. And I've realized how much I've lost. And Jerry, I love you. And I'm glad you're with Mom and Dad. And I can't wait to see you again. I love you, brother. Bye.
First, number one. Oh, sorry. Make it a little easier. My name's Marilyn Salas, and I am Jerry's birth mother. I think just about everybody here knows that Jerry was given up for adoption, and the beautiful family, the Vincents, adopted him in 1966. I'm going to read something first, and then I'm going to share a few personal memories. It's not how he died, but how he lived. Not how he died, but how did he live? Not what did he gain, but what did he give? These are the units to measure the worth of a man as a man, regardless of his birth. Not what was his church, nor what was his creed, but he had befriended those really in need. Had he befriended those really in need? Was he ever ready with word of good cheer to bring back a smile, to banish a tear? Not what did the sketch in the newspaper say, but how many were sorry when he passed away. Jerry and I had a strange relationship, to say the least. I knew after I gave birth and gave Jerry up for adoption that I would see him again. I can't tell you how I knew that or why I knew that. But when I left Salt Lake City to my travels back to Ohio, where I was born and grew up, I knew in the depths of my soul I would see him again. It was in the late 80s that I joined a group called Alma. And it was a group of people who were looking for their birth parents or for those who had been given up for adoption. And I learned there that it would be best to wait to try to find him or connect with him until he was at least 21 years old. At that time, I made a visit with my husband and children. My husband is Bob. He's here with me today. We visited the adoption agency, Catholic Charities, in Salt Lake City, and I tried to get information. And there was none to be had other than the fact that he was adopted by an Italian family. And that was pretty much it. And she was sorry that she couldn't help me anymore. Then, about 2 to 3 years after that, I received a phone call that they now had in place a computer system that would match people who were given up for adoption with those who were looking for their birth parents. So I was placed in that system looking for Jerry. At the time, just to back up a little bit, and I shared this with Christine this morning, when I left Utah, Salt Lake City, I had in my heart named my baby. And his name in my heart, my soul, was Chris. So the fact that he ends up being adopted into a family where there was already a Chris, I understand, was phenomenal to me. The other piece of information that I learned later on, after Jerry and I found each other, was that his mother's name was Rosemary, and my mother's name was Rosemary. So there were connections there that seemed beyond the odds. But finally, I got a phone call from the social worker at the adoption agency telling me that Jerry and his family had come in, that he was seeking information about his birth parents and health records. I was absolutely floored, to say the least. My first phone call that I received after that was actually from Rosemary, his mother, his adopted mother, his mom. And we had a wonderful conversation. She shared pictures with me that she ultimately sent me pictures of Jerry from the time he was growing up into the current years. And that was beyond my fondest, wildest dreams of ever having that be shared with me. So I made copies of all those pictures and sent them back. Then it was another couple of weeks and Jerry called me. So that was the beginning. That was in 1990, 30 years ago. Over a period of 30 years, I wanted a closer relationship with Jerry, but honestly, I wasn't quite sure Jerry knew where to put me in his life. He didn't turn his back on me, but then again, he had difficulty accepting who I was, I guess. I don't know. I'll never really know for sure. But what I do know is that I give much honor and appreciation to Beth, his wife. Beth kept in touch with me over the years. And if it wasn't for Beth, I wouldn't be standing here today. So I appreciate that beyond words, Beth. I think I'm finding out today and hearing about Jerry, the son that I had that I really didn't know. I have found out more about him, his personality traits, because honestly, we only talk to each other 2 or 3 times a year, Christmas, birthdays. That was about it. And I understood that that's the way he wanted to keep it. So I honored that. I didn't want to push it. I didn't go out of my way to force myself into his life, but I wanted to be there if he wanted me to be there. So it was a great shock to me to learn about his passing, and to be a parent and have your child pass before you do is another issue that I deal with. I'm going to be 77 and he was only 53, going to be 54. So I realize here today, he had some magnificent personal qualities that I never even realized. I do know for sure he loved his family. He truly loved his children, and he really loved those new grandbabies. So for that, I'm very happy that he experienced that joy in his life before he left. So I do feel that his presence is with us today. I feel the love that he's extending to everybody, and I feel blessed that I was Jerry's birth mother. Thank you so much.
Thank you for the touching speeches, everybody. At this time, we'd like to conclude the memorial. We have cookies. They're Jerry's favorite, peanut butter. But for those that don't like peanut butter, like Tony, we do have sugar cookies. Again, thank you for joining us. It really means a lot that you guys would come out and show your support for me and Nick, the rest of the family, and ultimately my dad. Thank you. Real quick for the Zoomers. We do have a website, papajerbear.com. We put it in the obituary. Feel free, though, there is a section to leave memories and photos. We would love to read those. If you just go to the website and submit those, that would be very appreciated. Thank you.